Okay, today I'm going to show how to add custom sounds to your boombox mode. In a previous video I showed how the boombox mode works. I wanted to add my own custom sound, so I just went into my USB drive. I pulled the USB drive, plugged it into my MacBook here, and just added another folder called boombox, and that unfortunately did not work. So after a bit of research I found out the proper procedure here, and I'm going to try and show you how to do that today here on a MacBook. If you are using Windows, I've added a link above to another video that shows how to do this on a Windows PC. It's relatively similar, but there are some slight differences. So if you don't think you can follow along on a MacBook, then go ahead and click that link. If you do have a MacBook, what you will need is your computer, obviously, a USB flash drive, preferably the one that is in the vehicle today that you're using for Sentry mode, and some sort of MP3 audio file to put on the drive. This will not work with an M4A file. Unfortunately, it has to be converted to MP3 or natively an MP3, so you'll have to do that conversion process either ahead of time or before you put it onto the drive itself. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're going to start with just grab your USB stick that you're interested in configuring, so either from your vehicle or a brand new one. Go ahead and plug that into the computer itself. And if you go up to the Go section and down to Utilities, you can scroll here on the left side just to see if you detect your the USB that you just plugged in. So mine was called Tesla Drive. I see it here, so I know that the computer sees it. And so I can click on the Utilities section and go into this section called Disk Utility. So I'll fire that up. And what this shows you is all the drives that are, all those media storage and drives that are connected to your computer. So you have a section up here called internal, which means they're physically inside the PC or the Mac, and then a section for externally plugged in devices. And so you may have one or two depending on what is plugged into your USB. Just make sure that the USB that you're planning on using is the one that you're going to select. So I'm going to select my Samsung flash drive here at the top level. And what we want to do is create some partitions on here. And so we're going to click this erase button. Obviously when we erase this, it's going to delete everything on there, so make sure that you've pulled everything off and backed everything up that you need to before you run this procedure. But it's going to ask you for three different things, so a name, a format, and a scheme. The name we can just leave as the default because we're going to rename it again a second time, so it won't matter here what you rename it this first time. We can leave this as Mac OS Extended Journaled, and we want to make sure that the scheme is GUID partition map. And so we're going now, one thing I notice here is this is already called Tesla Drive, and that's because I formatted this this USB using my vehicle. So there's an option inside the vehicle to hit Format USB, and it will do this manually for you. And if you do that, it will name the drive all capital Tesla Drive. Now I've noticed when I run this partition map, if I try to later rename it Tesla Drive again, exactly the same, I tend to get an error. So we're going to name it slightly different, and I don't think it matters, but we will end up naming it something different than Tesla Drive. So we're going to hit erase here. It's going to go through and unmount the drive. It will wipe away any partitions and any data that's there. And once this is done, it will enable us to click this partition button, which was grayed out prior. So we'll hit done. We'll keep this same top level selected, and we'll now select partition. And so when this partition dialog box comes up, there is a single partition. We're going to add a second one by clicking this plus here. It will, by default, just split the drive in half. If I look at the song that I'm going to put on, or looking to put on here, and I just hit get info, we can see that it's very small, 6.3 megabytes of space. This, by default, is trying to put 128 gigs on the second partition. We don't need nearly that much, so I'm just going to click and drag this to something much smaller, and when I get down to where it's a little bit smaller, I'm just going to put 1 gig for Untitled 2. So we've now got 1 gigabyte for this partition, and the rest of the partition has 256 gigs. So if I select that partition again, I'm going to change it to Boombox. This will be my Boombox partition. And I think it needs to be spelled and written exactly the same way with a capital B, all one word. and we'll change this to exFAT. Okay, once you've done that, it won't allow you to change the size, so you have to change the size before you switch exFAT. We'll click on the second partition, and this is where it was called Tesla Drive, and that's what I guess I would recommend naming it if it's a brand new drive or if it was named something else. But since it was already called Tesla Drive, in all capitals like this, I can't reformat it that way without getting an error. So I'm just going to change it to Tesla Drive like that, and make sure you change this to exFAT. We'll lock that in. We're going to hit apply, and we're going to say partition. And so it will go through now, and it will start to wipe everything that's on there again. It will delete here, and you'll start to see some of the progress in a moment. It'll create its boombox partition here in a moment. There it is. So you see that it will remove this untitled partition and rename it to the Tesla Drive partition. Okay, so there you go. So it's successful. I clicked done. We now have a drive here called Tesla Drive and one called Boombox. And at this point, we are pretty good. I think if I right click on this and I say show in Finder, it will pull up the Tesla Drive, and I'll just pull that over there, close this. And I'm going to do the same here on this Boombox drive. And so now I have a Boombox partition open and a Tesla Drive partition open. So now we need to make some folders inside of these partitions. So on the Boombox one, we're going to right click in here, say new folder. This definitely just needs to say Boombox like that. And so now you've got your Boombox folder. And on this one, we're going to say new folder, and it needs to be written exactly the same as here. We're going to say Tesla Cam. Okay. And capital T and a capital C. And so what this has done is when you plug this back into the vehicle, the car will look for Tesla Drive. It will also look for the folder Tesla Cam, and once it finds that, it will then create a folder for your dash cam, your Sentry cam, and for the drive cam, or whatever that third folder is. It will create those by default, and it will also have now your Boombox partition. So inside this Boombox partition is where we're going to put our audio file. I'll close this. I'm just going to click and drag this. Again, it needs to be an MP3. We'll put it in the Boombox folder. Sorry about that. There we go. So now it's in our Boombox folder. And the last thing we need to do is the vehicle does not like to see these special characters and spaces. And so we'll just click on this and we're going to rename it to something different with no spaces, but yet descriptive, because when we plug it in to the vehicle itself, it will show you some names of different files. So we want it to be descriptive enough that if we had 5 different files here, we would be able to discern which one is which by the name. So I'll just leave it as calvinharris.mp3, and I think we are all set there. So I can eject this at this point, and we'll just say eject all, even though it's the same drive. Okay, and we will take this out of the, force that to eject. We'll take this out of the computer here and go plug it in the vehicle, and I'll show you what it's like on the vehicle side. Okay, so we're in the vehicle now. If I click on the up arrow here, I have the toy box option. It brings me to the Boombox just by default because it's the top toy box thing. If I scroll down here in this list, you can see at the bottom I have my Calvin Harris MP3 that I've loaded. I'll hit preview here, and you can hear it when I turn it up. And if I just click up here at the top to check on the Sentry mode and dash cam, you can see that you have the option to launch the viewer, which shows that this is also working. Hope this helps.